All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here on another episode of Finance Junkies. It is 7:03 p.m., August 23rd, 2023. We have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, one of the most important companies in the stock market reported their earnings, talking about NVIDIA. We also have Snowflake earnings to go through, so we've got a lot to discuss. VITALY and Carlos, unfortunately, cannot be here today. VITALY's watching Dave Chappelle, so everyone tweet at him about Dave Chappelle, and Carlos he got some work thing going on. So we brought in a guest. I hit up one of my old friends who used to work at CNBS, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, yo, bro, we need someone to analyze NVIDIA earnings. I know you don't own a share of this company, but help us out here. Tevis.
You got to stop hyping up this special guest shit because like people get excited about it, and it's happened a couple of times. They're like, "Oh, it's just Tevis."
No, the
Tevis, you're special. Tevis, you're
you are special. Man. But Tanner does so many streams with you that when he says it's a special guest, I actually expect someone different, and then it's just you, and I'm like, all right, well,
yeah, just expect me.
All right, everybody. Thank you all for being here. We got a lot to talk about. We're gonna get into NVIDIA. That is the topic of the day. Markets are up. NVIDIA did 13.5 billion in revenue. They expected 11.4 billion, beat it by 88% quarter over quarter, 101% year over year, $2.5 billion beat. EPS 270. They expected 207. Guidance for next quarter 16.5 billion. I know Kris has a lot to say, so Tevis, I want to start with you and get your raw thoughts. I know you heard the earnings call with me, and then we'll get to what Kris has to say. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I did hear the earnings call. I think it is. I mean, I don't own NVIDIA. I have traded it because I'm an idiot over the years, but I have never like held it. But I mean, it's a mega cap that's growing like a startup, right? Especially with this like AI boom. And I know we were saying like it's going to be a make or break for the entire market to see if NVIDIA pumps, then the market is going to sort of rebound or sort of reaffirm this bull market or break the pattern, let's say, of bearish trend. One tweet that I really saw that I thought was eye-opening came from Kris Peruna, who basically said, I posted this on your live stream, Amit, when you were covering the earnings. The tweet says, when NVIDIA opens tomorrow, it will be above 100x return from Jan 1st, 2015. It closed out 2014 at $4.81 split adjusted, 100-bagger in 8 years and 8 months, from $10,000 to $1 million, a 700-bagger over the past 20 years. And, I know NVIDIA's CEO talked a little bit about how, they've been preparing for this for a while, going from that sort of general purpose to the specialized chips. One of the things that I also found interesting was, well, of course, the buyback. Like, this is a company that's buying back their stock at $1 trillion valuation. That was mind-blowing. And also the fact that, they foresee demand into 2024, and they're ramping up supply to meet that demand. And the first thing that I sort of thought about was whether they're just front running that demand, and whether they're going to steal, quote unquote, growth in the future. But that didn't seem to be the case, at least from what they were saying right now. So still, I mean, pretty interesting to see.
$25 billion buybacks, absolutely crazy. No expiration date on that. Kris, I think the biggest concern you, I, and all the junkies had before NVIDIA earnings was, can demand keep up? They beat revenue by 2.5 billion, going to grow 33% next quarter if they hit the revenue target of 16 billion. Do you still think there's a demand problem, or do you think, at least for the foreseeable future, it's okay?
I mean, clearly there's not a demand problem, right? My only question here was around total sales, like in terms of like per unit sales. TSMC was down, and TSMC is their only supplier. So how does that work out? Like what was the cause of all this revenue jump? Is it just gross margins increasing like crazy because demand was so high? And does this mean that NVIDIA is limiting supply artificially in order to boost up prices? Which, like I said, do me a favor, compare that to TSMC. I just want to see real quick. Like the financials, not necessarily the thing. So this is
there we
yeah.
right there.
Yeah, so the financial growth, not necessarily that. I just want to see the for TSMC, like their last quarter-over-quarter growth number.
I'll go to them specifically then.
Yeah. Yep. And just go to their last earnings. 'Cause
There we go.
last quarter, yeah. Okay, so this is the part that kind of shocked me a little bit in that you can see here. I mean, this is in Taiwanese dollars, by the way. So just don't look at it and be like, "Oh my god, like am I missing out on TSMC?" Like, no, it's Taiwanese dollars. It's not US dollars. But you can see here, year over year, things are down for TSMC. And go to March, and it's the same thing. So I'm asking myself, the growth rate with TSMC is not there. So how does NVIDIA make way more money now? So my thing is this actual AI chip demand that's doing it, or is it just raising prices on existing supply that's boosting this up, right? And the reason why I say that's important, someone's like TSMC is not their only OEM. Okay, tell me who else makes the same nanometer chip, please. I want to hear. Please put it in the chat. I'd love to hear who else is making the same nanometer process right now other than TSMC for NVIDIA. You know, so
Do you think they're juicing more out of their clients to get the revenue growth then?
they have to be. They have to be. I think what it is right now they've got Microsoft, they've got Google, they've got Meta, they've got all these guys under pretty much over a barrel right now, and just saying, "Hey, motherfuckers, if you want to be, lead in AI, you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to play ball here." And so, yeah, this could be NVIDIA's moment of just charging the shit out of a product and making tons of money. So if you look at their gross margins is super high. My only concern going forward would be that every time you try to milk a client, it gives the client more incentive to create their own chips, right? So in the short term, NVIDIA is going to be fine. Their demand is like crazy. It's no problem. My concern is more about the future, and that you're pretty much inviting the other you're basically your top clients into creating their own AI chips that can be used to basically funnel their operations. So I'd say that's something to be concerned about long term. Short term, I think NVIDIA is just killing it, dude. Their product is just so amazing. And the other thing is, because each one of the major data center partners wants to be at the top, they're willing to pay these astronomical prices going forward. So it's just, but like I said, if I was a betting man, I'd say that these guys now are even more tempted to create their own infrastructure, to see if there's they can actually build a lot of this AI stuff themselves. And that's why they're hired a lot of great AI, engineering talent. Like, what's his name? Amazon acquired Annapurna Labs, so it's just one of those things. It just you really have to dig down deep to to find the true value of things. The other thing is NVIDIA is in a cyclical business, right? So what a lot of people are seeing right now is a tremendous amount of demand coming for these chips. But when does it taper off, right?
What if it never tapers off? Jensen Huang was saying there's $1 trillion of data spend that's going to happen every year, and they only have 10 billion of it.
I mean, it's in his interest to say that. It's in his interest to say that. So, you're not going to be able to get away from saying that. The CEO is always going to hype up his own company. You tell me one CEO that comes out and says, "Hey guys, I don't think there's going to be future demand."
Alice Karp never hypes up Palantir.
Yeah. Okay. Congrats on that. So I'd say right now it's one of those things that's like, I wouldn't chase NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA's had a great run up, but I wouldn't chase it. I think the alpha to be had in this specific space, you should be looking at tertiary companies and secondary companies that are adjacent to this, that are going to benefit significantly from the technology improvement. So my example, like I said, my bull case on AI becoming a more normalized thing in terms of value for shareholders is probably going to be Google. Google is still very undervalued compared to their true market potential. They've been leaders in the AI space for a long time, right? And on top of it, they're really like just changing up the business to be a lot more efficient. And so I think we'll see I think we'll see a lot more growth from Google. And just because someone keeps bringing it up on Tesla, you know, if you think Elon is all about paying Nvidia for the rest of his life to basically just, you know, to pay Jensen Huang's bills, no, Elon's not that guy, man. Elon is going to figure out a way to create his own chips, create his own stuff so that he doesn't have to rely on Nvidia for Dojo. Yeah, maybe in the short term, none of these big guys are going to say anything bad about Nvidia, primarily because that's their major supplier for AI chips, right? So no one's going to actively say it. But if you're telling me that these guys aren't working on their own architecture that's can supplant Nvidia and basically boost their own margins, you know, that's where I'm at with this.
Yeah, I mean, Elon has said publicly on Twitter multiple times, like praising NVIDIA's CEO, but at the same time, he's also said that Tesla has gotten some preferential treatment in terms of their orders from NVIDIA. So, I mean, in the short term, that relationship is pretty important because it underscores the growth of these other companies. Like if you know, like Tesla as an example is supply constrained from NVIDIA, then Tesla is going to be capped in terms of what they're reporting on their sectors that are dependent on the hardware, right? So, but in the long term, yeah, I mean, even they mentioned even in the earnings call that everybody is eventually going to be looking to have their own hardware, just you know, as a way to further niche down, right? This is mostly like general purpose, but they also mentioned like automotive, gaming, and all these different use cases, and how that shakes up from a hardware perspective as well.
So speaking of Tesla, as Carlos, I don't know you're going to be joining us, but he's here. He's here.
Thank you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So
yeah, I was just busy with some stuff, but I might have to jump. But still, I wanted to just catch on because man, that was insane. NVIDIA is a fucking beast.
Okay, so now that you're here, I'm going to ask the spicy question. Speaking of Tesla, look, I was looking at the market caps, right? NVIDIA's at 1.2 trillion or something. Tesla's still below $1 trillion. Can't even touch a T. Okay, and it got me thinking. I can see the demand when it comes to AI from NVIDIA. I can really feel it through the screen as I'm looking at them beat revenue guidance by 2.5 billion. Yeah. Tesla's AI moat that everyone keeps talking about is FSD. It seems like I can model out NVIDIA's AI growth demand very easily. Data centers, there's a logical relationship there. Whereas FSD, I don't know if that's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying this is a bear. I'm just saying, do we think NVIDIA is the true AI play over the next decade, not Tesla, because FSD has a ton of questions behind it, whereas data center revenue has 0 questions behind it?
Every company is going to benefit from AI, and the companies that don't somehow use AI in their business are going to suffer, and the ones that incorporate more AI will get a higher multiple. Tesla's dominance in the AI you're speaking about is not so much the processing, it's the data. It's the data that they have on the millions and millions of miles driven, the amount of edge cases that they've been able to experience and program for, and their massive fleet that is constantly basically creating more and more data. They've run away on that front. And as anybody that does AI will tell you that you can have great software, but you need the data to train it properly. So that's Tesla's moat, is the data, and that's not going away. But I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. Like Tesla's not coming for NVIDIA's lunch. I mean, NVIDIA is not coming. NVIDIA just wants to supply everybody with the most powerful GPUs that they can.
But isn't that the better stock to invest in then long term?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, look, they're both great stocks, but I think like NVIDIA is clearly like the picks and shovels, the main picks and shovels play of the AI space. But Tesla in and of itself is an ETF of multiple companies. Like, you know, to use a phrase, like they have multiple shots on goal. They've got way more arms in their octopus in order for them to increase to a $2, $3, $4 trillion market cap over the next 5 to 10 years. This is Tesla I'm speaking about. So, the other thing is, they're not fully up and running with Dojo just yet. I mean, if you look at the advancements that they've been able to make in terms of just pure processing power, in terms of exaflops and what they are projecting out, it is an absolutely ridiculous number that they are projecting out for next year. And Elon's whole thing is he's told his team, I want to be able to go in and pull the freaking the NVIDIA GPU cluster off of the network. He's pushing the team to create something that is on par with Dojo. And the difference is, whereas NVIDIA comes out with subsequently more and more powerful chips, Tesla wants to be able to scale up by simply just adding more boxes, right? So they want to create their own perfect chip solution that is infinitely scalable. Basically, you add more chips to the block, then you add more blocks to the tray, then you add more trays to the cabinet, then you just add more cabinets. And they want to be able to license that out and rent that out to people in the same way that Amazon and a lot of these other companies have rented out their server space. So I don't think they're in competition at all.
My thing is profitability is probably monstrous for these Google guys, for not just Google, for these cloud providers. Because if you think when we keep saying data center, right? Who owns the data centers? You know, it's these guys. These guys are the ones that own the software behind it. So they're passing on the cost. So right now, the justification, it probably is, hey, listen, we can eke out a profit with the current system, even if we're paying NVIDIA so much X amount of money. But in the future, if we're able to do our own chips, that means that we can keep all that extra money.
Right. The whole line.
So like right now, I just looked up an article. God damn it. I can't believe I closed it. Whatever. But for an H100 right now, NVIDIA's total cost per unit is about $2,300 to $3,500. Okay. On a hardware plus research and development, all that basis, we combine it together. That's how much it costs them. When they sell it, they're selling them for like $35,000 to $40,000.
How do they get away with that?
Because they're the only ones with the technology,
and it's the value add. It's the value add.
Yeah. So if
but
you
the
have
2,300 comes from a integrated supply chain, how do they get or is it actually just that cheap to? Because
No,
why
no,
wouldn't
it's
Meta make them for 2,500 then? If like,
no, it's not as simple. You need to have the research development, the IP to build these things. You can't just say, okay, let me build a AI GPU chip tomorrow. Like that. These things take a long time to do.
Look at what they've spent.
Yeah.
Meta has already spent, I think, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, they've already spent the price of the acquisition of Twitter in the metaverse, just in billions and billions per year. So they've already spent the money that they could have bought a social media network like Twitter, right? They could have bought it. And people complain when Elon Musk bought that and felt it was a distraction, but they've spent easily that much money just developing the metaverse. Now you're asking them to make their own chips? Jesus.
I mean, they can do it. That's the thing about these guys. They could. At Google has enough firepower to do it. AMD is a competitor. They have way more incentive and firepower to go ahead and make competing products, and they also have patents already that are probably around there. So if you think Lisa Su is just sitting around saying, yeah, go ahead,
eat my lunch,
not eat my lunch, but just take the entire market, like that's not going to happen. I think right now NVIDIA has the first to market mover advantage. That's a huge advantage, but that doesn't mean that that's going to last forever, right? And there's classic examples of that all throughout history. If you think about it, like the first smartphones weren't Apple iPhones. They were actually Blackberries, right? So there was a time where BlackBerry owned the majority of the smartphone market, but eventually they couldn't keep up, and that I don't think that that's a problem with Jensen Huang. I think he understands the reasoning behind investing in the future and just keep developing, and they definitely don't have a lot of the structural problems like things like BlackBerry did. But the point is that, and this is something that I think CodeStrap says very well, it's like your competition gets a say in your business operation. So right now, AI being, NVIDIA being that they have the most powerful AI chips out there and the software that runs everything, they're going to benefit. But that's not to say that in the future competition isn't coming, in which case then these margins that they're able to eke out of their clients may not necessarily, exist. So
okay, so then let's talk.
Actually, real quick, Farzad did have a video recently on Twitter, on X, that I saw recently, discussing the time frame for FSD. I think they're a lot closer than you think. I know that
we said it's end of this year, right?
Yeah, I think they were a lot closer than people think. I mean, he was describing a drive that he does that I think is 1,700 miles every year or something like that, and it's 90% of it is done by FSD. So when you think about it, if Tesla does not operate with a geofenced mapping, so they don't have high res or high definition maps of the areas that they would be servicing. But it's not to say that they couldn't do like a digital geofence and say, at first, we're going to just operate in San Francisco, and and they have a lot of data. on how to operate in San Francisco and basically roll out these robo-taxi markets in a small place and then open them up. A car doesn't need to drive from California to New York in order for them to have a robo-taxi network, as some of these others have proven. And they also don't have that legacy cost of the massive amounts of hardware that they have to put on these vehicles and the high resolution mapping. And I'm sure you've seen all over X recently the number of cruise cars that have been getting stuck in intersections or cutting people off. They have a real fault there when it comes to like the cellular phone network that runs the whole business. That's not how Tesla's FSD operates. So they're about to turn on that spigot, and I think they're going to get a multiple in the same way that you're seeing in NVIDIA. And then can we share this screen real quick, just because Kris was talking about it earlier? We don't just want to read a little bit of this article. Speaking of data centers, can you guys see this okay?
Yep.
Tesla says it will build a new first-of-its-kind data centers. The automaker is hiring staff for it and snapping up some existing data centers. The data center business is now massive, with a market size of more than $250 billion. Most of the biggest companies in the world, which are known to consumers for other products, are in it, like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and Meta Platforms Facebook. Now Tesla is getting into the data center business. A new job posting, blah, blah, blah. Tesla didn't explain how those data centers will be first of their kind, which is not something you'd expect in a job posting anyway. But interestingly, the new effort comes as Tesla is beginning to taking over data centers from Twitter. So there's other AI plays. And don't forget, AI, X.AI exists now. We're not exactly sure what the product roadmap for that is, but Elon also did recently post like a graphic video of like X, the everything app. They're starting to make this transition. And so I think very soon we're going to actually see the cards, see their AI play. And I'm not sure when they're going to have it, but I believe we'll have another either investor day or an AI day. And that I think we're going to get really good, like geek out information on.
We should have one in the fall, I believe.
That's September.
Is yeah,
September at some point, right?
But look, I think like at a high level that AI in the beginning of the year was almost like a question mark of the staying power that it had as a trend or a long forming sort of base. And I think that this earnings for NVIDIA, and especially the comments that they made around the supply that they're seeing or the demand that they're seeing into 2024 just validates that market. And so it's not necessarily like, oh, is NVIDIA going to eat AMD's lunch or is NVIDIA against Tesla? Like those are not necessarily the right comparisons to make. It's beneficial for the entire sector of everybody who plays in this space, right? Because I mean, again, I think I made an earlier point around the specialization of the hardware for specific use cases. Like Tesla's, like Dojo V1 is
it's a video processor. It's just like a massive video processor. Yeah, exactly.
And I was seeing this article that like the chips have started for Tesla for Dojo in July, I believe. They started. So they're using them now, and it's expected that by February of 2024, they're going to be like top 5 in terms of processing power. Because right now it's not even a comparison in terms of like the NVIDIA chips versus Dojo chips. But the thing with that is like, well, to Kris's earlier point, right? Tesla is the poster child for vertical integration, right? All the way through the stack, they vertically integrate and they put it in house. And so if you're thinking about this project where they're building out data centers, they're improving on Dojo, and they're going to have it all in-house, specifically trained to their unique case, then again, all we can take away from this NVIDIA earnings, I think, if we zoom out, is just a validation for the space in general, not necessarily making micro comparisons.
Well, to that point, like right now, we're seeing what I'm calling the AI multiple. So, like I think you posted it on X today, Amit. Palantir just jumped back to $16. Why? Because NVIDIA did well, and if you have anything to do with AI, people are going to give you that multiple. I think we're going to continue to see that over the next few quarters. That there'll be this bump. We'll call like the AI multiple, but then at a certain point, that will go away, and the forward Ps or the valuations of these companies will just naturally be at a higher level. And this is what we talked about, that companies can be overvalued for a long time as long as they continue to have the correct guidance and continue to hit their numbers. And this AI thing could just be something that pushes any company related to that space just a 10%, even a 5 to 10% higher over the long term. And so it's a good time to get in, or it's a good time to be holding those companies.
So speaking of valuation, then, Kris, stocks at 503, up 7%. Is there any way you think the market can justify the valuation given the growth is there, or is the valuation still absurd in your opinion?
No, the valuation makes absolute sense now. I mean, with that kind of 100% year-over-year revenue growth, come on. Gross margins of 70, 80%. Bro, whatever valuation metric you were using literally 24 hours ago, throw that shit out the window, man.
But would you
It's
buy it?
garbage.
Would you buy
Fuck
it?
no. Fuck no.
Okay, so there's the disconnect. You say the valuation makes sense, but
Yeah.
you're not going to buy it. What's the
No.
issue there?
Because I told
Rango,
you.
38 PE.
No,
Yeah,
that's
38.4 P.
the reason why I wouldn't buy it is very simple. It's because there's better options out there that have lower risk for future growth. That's all. You know, like there's a time where you just kind of have to take a step back and ask yourself, like, okay, is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, what am I
Right?
looking
Did I
at
miss?
here?
Did I miss the run up? If you
You
had
know.
it when it was 100 defined.
No,
But I'm confused. If you say the valuation's
the
cheap,
top.
there's supposed to be more running up. So why?
No, he said
is
he
that-
didn't
Yeah,
say it was cheap. He said it's correct.
yeah.
that's correct.
Right now, based on today's numbers, it's absolutely correct. The problem is future, like let's say next year things slow down. What happens, right? What you're doing is you're valuing yourself for perfection right now, which is fine. You can do that if you can maintain the growth over a long period of time. This is absolutely reasonable to buy into this company. I just don't think that that's the possibility. So no, I think right now, what I would rather be doing is I would rather look at companies that are adjacent to NVIDIA that now are going to benefit significantly from NVIDIA's rise. So if you think NVIDIA is doing really well, okay, who are NVIDIA's main suppliers? So that's why we looked at SMCI. Look at SMCI today. It jumped up, but it's still below its 52-week high, right?
If there's a
52-week high.
7-Eleven, if there's a 7-Eleven next to the NVIDIA headquarters, invest in 7-Eleven right next door.
I mean, that's not a
No, you
bad
invest
idea.
because of a
Just
Patel.
like-
You invest because of a Patel at the 7.
That's not
Right,
a bad
right,
idea.
right.
But
Invest
but
in
so
Patel.
so if you look at this, they took a recent hit, but look at that. They're up $24 today, so there's almost 10%. So if you're telling me like, wait, did I miss the boat on NVIDIA? Yeah, but look at this one. This is only a $15 billion market cap company that supplies a lot of the hardware needed to make sure that the GPUs can actually function correctly.
Chris, when did you buy
for
this?
the
You bought
time.
this at $70, around that?
$90.
Your average was 90 on this. Okay.
Yeah.
Around
So I mean,
February.
this is the kind of stuff that you should be looking out for, not necessarily just, oh my God, NVIDIA, and then look at the data center market, because I think that's where all the stuff is going into. So I'd say look at Google. The reason why I say look at Google is because Google is willing to pay the price on these H100s, which means that there's definitely business demand out there for AI generative products, right? So Google, of course, is going to be selling the service using Google Cloud AI, which, by the way, every bit of research that I'm doing is telling me Google Cloud AI is just dominating their cloud business. You could see last year just reach not last year, last quarter just reach profitability. You're also going to see a lot of that profit end up translating into Google. So I would say keep an eye on Google. Keep an eye on that. Then there's like suppliers specifically that build the nanometer processes that are able to provide the manufacturing for these chips. So as an example, ASML. ASML owns the technology EUV lithography in order to make these GPUs possible in the first place. Now, one of the things is, just like the scenario that I just said 2 minutes ago, well, what about the other competitors? They're going to have to come in and create their own AI chips. But the thing is that AI chip technology is going to have to be so condensed down. It's going to have to be done on a 3-4 nanometer chip process, which means that ASML is going to be able to sell their machines to more chip fabs in the future. And with Intel building more chip fabs and everything else, they could seriously benefit too. So, these are the kinds of things that I'd take a look at.
Also, like Kris was saying the other day, we're reaching a point where just the physics of traditional chips we're running out. Like we literally have squeezed all of the juice. They're making things, they're talking about things down to the atom. And so whichever one of these companies can figure out quantum computing at scale that's the next leg up. Basically for Moore's law to continue. You know what I mean?
The one company that, look, NVIDIA in the future, in my opinion, can have competition from these what is that thing called? From these other chip manufacturers, like, well, not chip designers, and also from like the data centers and everything else. ASML, as far as I know, is so unique in their product stack. They can charge whatever the hell they want for their machines and make a fucking buttload of money, and there's no competition for them. Like, it'll take 20 to 30 years of research you start now. These guys are bending physics right now, okay? So if there's a company that you want to be in long term, it's not NVIDIA, it's ASML.
Interesting.
I don't have any puts. I don't have any puts. See, that's the thing. Like, I know that I sound... Whenever you speak reasoned, like when you make reasoned arguments, people think that you have a fucking bear case on every single company out there. And no, I'm not fucking bearish on any company. All right. If there's a bear case to be made, I will make it. But dude, just because I don't believe in the fucking cult doesn't mean that I'm somehow bearish and I have puts on a company. It's like this. I hate this because everyone thinks like I'm the resident bear that only thinks negative about everything. And it's really stupid.
Who says that? I don't think people say that.
Nah,
No,
dude, tons of people.
Comments,
Tons of people, man.
I think they're all Palantir bag holders. That's what
They probably are Palantir bag
That's what
holders.
I think it is. But that's different. That they're a different breed.
There's going to be so many people that are going to chase this, like 1 trillion, 1.1, whatever it's at right now, whether it runs or whether it dumps tomorrow. Like, there's going to be so many people that where it's like, NVIDIA, it's already 400 billion, it's already 500 billion. Now that it's a trillion, they're going to be like, AI is the next big thing. And they're going to chase it because it happens every single time with every single sort of wave.
So here's the question. Here's how NVIDIA will get these kids to chase this stock like it's at a party and you need chaser to chase the alcohol down.
No, like it's 12:30 at a club in LA. And
I didn't go that directly. I was trying to do the
a half hour left. You're looking around being like,
it's 2 words. Starts with S. Other word starts with S. You want to guess? SS. 2 words. They need to do tomorrow. This shit runs another $100.
Stock split.
Stock split. Do you think they do a stock split from 500 to 100?
If they did,
I mean, they already did one like 2 years ago.
I know, but do you think they do another one like Tesla?
It would be real smart. It would be really smart because a lot of people don't even really understand, like a retail especially, don't really understand market cap. They just understand price. I mean, Apple stock price, anytime you've checked it, when you've been in it, it was always $100, 100 here, 115. He's never gone to parties. We've got so much work to do on you in Vegas. I don't have too much time. I don't have too much time. But you will never, ever, ever use the word coitus again after I'm done with you.
Bro, I used it on a live stream and I was like, I don't know where I got this from. Someone in the comments was like, Big Bang Theory. I was like, oh shit. It was Big Bang Theory. It was Sheldon. He was the guy.
Maybe, but we're not using that word when I'm around. When I'm within like reaching distance, when I can actually get a hold of you physically.
Kris, you think they do a stock split or no?
I mean, eventually. Why not? Makes sense, like, to just break it down. Yeah.
What if bring that up? I was told by many Michael Anthony. I was told NVIDIA in 2000. No, what was it? He was saying Ryan. People have been saying NVIDIA is overpriced since it was 200. What if NVIDIA is the next Apple? What do you mean by the next Apple? Like, they're not going to.
I think what he means is like when Apple was on their S curve of selling a crap ton of iPhones and Macs, people said it was overvalued, but they didn't realize services was the real game plan. Once you get everyone into the ecosystem, you charge there. Is NVIDIA an ecosystem type of play where it just keeps running because they can keep charging for more services?
Well, as long as they have the lead, you have to understand they're not just going to sit on that capital. They're going to take that capital and they're going to make even better products. Like that's what Apple did, right? So they're not just going to sit there and be complacent with their lead. So yeah, that's put pressure on other companies. But if you mean that, Ryan, in terms of the stock, it's possible because people thought that the company was overvalued for a long time. And look at Apple; it's the most valuable company in the world. But in terms of like, are they going to come out with one killer product after another? No, NVIDIA is going to do what it does, and it's going to continue to execute and continue to increase their margins and make these things smaller and make them more powerful. And also, there's not even much that they have to do. Like I was saying, once this AI multiple gets built into companies' valuation, right? You need to have some sort of AI involved in your business to even play, and no matter what business it is. This is part of what we were talking about, like the bull case with Zoom. We don't have to get into it now, but like if Zoom wins that court case and they're allowed to get all of this data, what they can do using NVIDIA GPUs is leverage that AI to give every single company like their own virtual assistant that knows everything about the company. There's a lot that these companies can offer if they can really integrate AI. And I'm talking in like a serious way. You do have to get around a lot of the privacy and security issues that come along with that, because again, it needs data. It's not enough. You need data. And so that's the part that I think is gonna lag here.
Speaking of Carlos, I was seeing this thing on I just saw it on Twitter or on X around OpenAI's 3.5 version, where they were saying that we can now have all of your company's data trained in the model, so that you automatically have this sort of wiki or repository of knowledge for your company's specific use case, which is like you have the generic sort of ChatGPT brand, and then you have like a niche of your company specifically. Like that is something that is sellable and is marketable to these companies that can translate into immediate value.
But it's also, yes. And I think at some point they are going to get there, because it just has to go that way. There's too many advantages to having that, to not do that. But there's got to be a couple of these companies to test the water first. Like, I don't know if you would want to risk your multi-billion-dollar corporations' data, the stuff that you talk about, say on a Zoom call, the stuff, your internal emails. This is really private data. It also brings up the question of like insider trading. That was another thing too, is like if you suddenly have access to all of this data, you know some of the vulnerabilities and advantages of specific companies. You get into this gray area where it's the same thing that happened when the internet came to be. We have to develop what the rules of engagement are, because it's not just all about the positives. You know, I did a Twitter space with Warren Redlick. He did one recently all about like he was talking to a big Tesla bear, and they were talking about like the AI plays and stuff like that. And a lot of people tend to only focus on the positives, and they think that the doomsday scenario for AI is like, well, they're going to turn into robots and kill us. It's not necessarily that. There's a lot of other things that can go wrong with that. And I feel like just on that front, because it needs all this data, putting all of this data in one place is always dangerous. This is what companies try to mitigate, and now they kind of have to.
Well, I mean, look, I think the road has already been paved to some degree from a privacy and security perspective. Like Face ID on Apple devices, for one, like the Apple ecosystem just has so much data about each individual user that it almost is like the layup or the alley-oop, let's say, for now the next realm of like, oh, what's AI going to look like? Well, we've already given up so much data on a personal basis with regards to our smartphones that we carry around with us and have all of our comms. So it's a slippery slope, I think.
What I think we're seeing is government sort of ceding some of the actual control over population to the corporations, and the corporations are actually starting to dictate some of the policies necessary for them to do what they got to do. So we're getting into this gray area where these companies or these corporations are becoming more important and more powerful than the government. We don't vote any of those people in, and terms of service can change at any time. There's a real recipe for disaster here that I think if we navigate it correctly could really could bring in a new age of prosperity for companies and for individuals. But on the other end of it too, the potential pitfalls are disastrous. So we'll have to see what happens. I'm with Elon Musk on this. What he says, you have to create the regulation. He's like, the reason why the FAA exists is because you don't want airline companies cutting corners when an airplane's involved, right? You don't want them cutting corners, so you need to have certain standards. The same thing with cars. You don't want them cutting corners when it's your family in the thing. I think we have to do the same thing for AI. I'd love to see some sort of a legislative body where they actually debate these things. You have to bring in these AI masters to come in and debate these things, and the public should be made aware of some of this stuff.
Let's transition to Snowflake. This is another company that had major earnings today. Revenue growth was $674 million, 36% year-over-year growth, 8,000 customers. I think 400 or 600 of them in the global top 2,000. Product revenue was $640 million. Free cash flow of $88 million, representing 50% year-over-year growth. Overall, just phenomenal earnings. Growth rates are insane. Stock moved up like 2 or 3% after hours. Nothing too crazy. Kris, you have a position in this company. Any thoughts on their earnings?
I do not have a position in this company, actually.
I
sold in 175s. I'm waiting for a pull back to the 130s again, mainly because their growth is slowing down and the valuation is at the higher end of the amount that I'm willing to pay. So like I said, this is one of those definitely tradable stocks where once it drops like 135, 130s, even early 140s, you could buy it. And then once it just jumps up over optimism, you could sell it out again. I've done it about 3 times now, and it's worked well. So I'm going to keep doing that. So they're still executing very well. yeah, there's not really much to say about it. They are more Salesforce like in that they have a secular growth story ahead of them where they're just going to keep growing. Eventually the growth is going to top off, but it's still going to be profitable and it's still going to keep growing. They've also made a lot of side investments on different companies via Snowflake Ventures that will run directly off their balance sheet, which could become very interesting in the future. But in terms of like SaaS, this is like a traditional SaaS company, you know? So.
Yeah. Okay, I got one more topic left for today. It's not really finance oriented, so we're gonna get into it. But and you know, if people like it, they can stay. But
Don't text her. Don't text
it's not
her.
about a girl. It's not about a girl. Before I do that, I am officially doing this in front of 540 people. Kris, you've earned tomorrow off from the podcast. Kris, the audience can see he's very tired. He's been working like a dog day and night. He has a real job outside of Finance Junkie. So take tomorrow off. I know you're tired as hell. The audience can definitely see it. As your boss, I'm just kidding. But no, you definitely need to take a day off, bro. So tomorrow we'll have someone fill in.
It's been rough working overnight and then doing research and then, you know, during the daytime and being around to do stuff during the daytime. So it's a little rough and it can really get like, even today, like I just realized like I just had like a small outburst on a bunch of trolls in the comments, bro. I don't give a shit, to be honest with you. But the thing is, like, when you don't get enough sleep, you become irritable and you become like a little bit like, ugh. So that's what it is. So, yeah, it is what it is. I definitely need to figure out how to schedule my time a little bit more efficiently. Like I've been talking about possibly scaling back my Patreon a little bit because there's been
why don't you talk about it? This I think this is a great conversation for people who are learning from the inside of the content creator game, because you're not a content creator. I turned you into a content creator by forcing you to do all these podcasts with me. What is it like when you have a real Patreon that's growing and you have to reply to people? Tell us some of the issues you got going on.
Well, I mean, you know what it is when people are paying you for your opinion and, you know, really like making a lot of informed decisions based on what you're leading. You feel you feel obligated to constantly be on the go. Like you can ask any of the people on my Patreon if they ask me a question. I literally will do whatever I can to just respond as quickly as I can. But it does wear you down a little bit, right? Where you don't want to be in a position where you're constantly like fielding questions, and because you're taking some sort of payment, you feel obligated
because you actually give a shit about people. You're not a grifter. You actually care about people.
Yeah. You know, and on top of it, I feel like I made a mistake with Savvy Trader because I put my positions, like I created a model portfolio and I put that out there. And the thing is, like, anytime I make a move on something, the questions start coming in, like, why did you move that way? And, you know, it's like I said, once again, I feel obligated to answer people. And I could just ignore people and just be like, whatever, it's not really my problem. But the thing is, like, if I make a move, I kind of want people to know, like, hey, this is the same thing I think like Jesse Lee Dow is facing as well. And that when he started off by broadcasting his moves, and when things were going the right direction, everyone's like, oh my God, this guy is so good. This guy's genius. And then when one day, or I think 1 or 2 days, things didn't go his way, everyone turned on him on Twitter, and then that just pissed him off. He was like, fuck this. I don't really give a shit anymore. So I think one of the things that I may eventually do is I'll give it a little bit more time. But then I may just turn Savvy Trader off, and just basically share my thoughts with just the Patreon folk. And that's it. And just let everyone else figure out things on their own, you know, because that's at some point, if you feel obligated and you feel responsible to provide honest information, this is one of the consequences that you'll end up facing over a long period of time, that it does wear on you. And I'm sure guys like Jeremy, Meet Kevin, all these guys, you know, I don't have nearly the amount of following that they do. I mean, imagine opening up your Twitter and just being called a grifter, or people making hate videos about you because you had an opinion on something. It can get you really have to develop a very, very thick skin just to maintain your
composure. Yeah. And
composure.
Also, yeah. Cause you feel, I mean, I haven't had that. I haven't had people like making hate videos, but I don't think it would bother me because I come from the entertainment business and they do say like no publicity is bad publicity, right? It's all good for you. It's all good because what those guys also see is a bunch of people coming to their defense. Even me, I've defended Jesse Dow. Someone talks shit about him because they lost money on a PayPal option. It's like, dude, why are you listening to some guy on Twitter? Like he's making a lot of money for him, but he knows a lot more than you do. You need your own conviction. So you get the push pull.
But that's exactly it. Like Carlos said, like the stronger the opinion, the more polarizing the audience, and that cuts both ways, both negative and positive, right? For every hater, you're gonna get some like super fan to defend you in those comments. And like if you're just in the middle, and so like for me, for example, like I usually just report on stuff and I don't really have strong opinions. I also don't have like super strong fans. Like I see like people commenting on Jesse, and it's just like half of it is like super support, and then half of it is hate. And I'm like, well, I don't have either of those things. But
well, now you will. Everybody in the chat, we're
opinion.
gonna go hate bomb all your accounts, everything you
Fuck
post.
SoFi.
I am coming after you tonight. I'm gonna do it in the middle of the night, right? So because I work nights too, so I'm gonna do it all night. When you wake up tomorrow, bing, 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 just hate.
I think
Chris,
Yeah.
real quick, I want to ask you about the money. You're making some money from Patreon. Do you feel the money is worth it, or do you feel
No.
I have a regular job, I don't give a fuck about the money?
No, I do well investing. I do well on my job. Like the Patreon is literally my original intention was just to use it to basically support a lot like of the subscriptions that I get, because there's a lot of subscriptions that I want to get. Like you were talking about Bloomberg today, like how that like you were literally trying to piece together data from 3 different things, the investor. But if you had a Bloomberg terminal, it would have been much better, But the thing is that Bloomberg terminal is expensive. So whenever you create content, a lot of costs that come with content creation, like, and especially good content creation comes with a cost. So like the data that I try to get and provide to everyone, it's high quality data that I actually get from like good quality sources, and it's not just some random website that you want to actually provide that.
You paid $1,000 for like a SLG research piece, right? I mean, that's money.
Can I give you my unsolicited opinion,
advice? Go for it
on how to handle that. And this is something that I've noticed with Vitaly and I when we had the Discord. When we first had the Discord, we had like 10 people in there. We were responding to everyone. We were responsible for like all of the moderation and the engagement that was on it. We were bringing up the links and the videos, and we were bringing up the topics and opening up the channels. And at a certain point, it was impossible for us to keep up. Like I think both of us were just literally on Discord all day. But what happens is there becomes like a passing of the torch. You'll have some of the people in the Discord, at least, that sort of rise up to the top, and they become like the OG Discord guys, like Pilot, like Johnny. Those guys rise up, and we make them admins. And they can now actually do most of the work in terms of maintaining the service. And, Vitaly more than I, but we'll just chime in when we feel it's necessary or we want to bring something up to the group. And I think that's what you need to do. If you have enough people, and the other thing I'll say to you personally is to budget your time. Give yourself, say, 2 hours a day to handle the Patreon. If the message comes in, don't feel obligated to get back to it right away. It's not a text message from your wife. It's not urgent. Someone writes you something. You say, look, from the hours of 9 to 11, I'm going to be responding to these. If I don't get to all of them, then I don't get to all of them. The other thing too is if you put it into a public forum, if there's some way you can do that, then sometimes somebody else has the answer. So you have to make it work for you because people want access to you, but it doesn't mean that they should expect, they should expect like to have you.
It's just one of those things that it's just one of those things that I think I may eventually just scale it back. I got enough people on there already. I don't want to keep adding to the point where I'm inundated. And then, like I said, I do want to provide that high quality information to people. I want to make sure that everyone's opinions are taken into consideration. Everyone gets their, due time with me, especially if they're paying. I want to make sure I'm obligated to give that. The one thing that I think will be the point where I know that I'm going to quit, and I know everyone has a point where they're going to quit. It's not a dollar figure for me. It's when my judgment starts getting impacted by the questioning, because that means that I am no longer an investor. I'm a content creator. And my goal was never to be just a content creator. I'm a content creator second. Like that's all that shit is out the door. I'm an investor first. If my investing thesis is somehow guided by my content creation, and that's the one thing that I've seen that I feel is toxic and fucking poisonous, is that you as a good investor should not invest or not create or base your opinions based on what is going to get you the most clicks and views. And I've seen that happen where people who have actually been good investors transform into fucking poisonous content creators where all they do is just pump stocks because that's the stock that gets all the views. So fuck it, regardless of whether or not I actually have any core beliefs in this company, I'm just going to pump it, and then what ends up happening is there's a whole set of people who actually believed in that person. They end up joining them, and then it just spirals into this fucking nonsense of stupidity. So if I ever feel like my judgment is being clouded by my content, like need to be like self-aggrandizing, I have a point where I'll just fucking quit myself. I'm just like, dude, I'm done. I don't need to do this shit. I'm gonna quit.
You're not operating in a bubble. If you're still on Finance Junkies, we're the guardrails, right?
Yeah, that's the one thing. That's the one thing I like. Yeah,
when those content creators, I feel like what you're talking about happens when it's one guy talking to a camera. You know what I mean? Like, just all day.
That's why you hated trying to do that. You tried that a year ago, and you texted me like, "Bro, I hate it."
If you start looking at the metrics, you start looking at this is what happens to bands, their second or third album. This is what happens to TV shows after they see the success. You start to do more of what made it successful, and less of just like what inspires you to do it, and you become sort of a caricature of yourself. And you can see
the Dogecoin millionaire is a perfect example, right?
Yeah, but he became literally a freaking a meme of himself, of what he was. And
look, I think one of the things that mitigates that, though, in Chris's situation is that he has a primary income from somewhere else. And it's not like his bank account is directly related to the type of content that he makes. I mean, for these guys, like their Patreons and their YouTube revenue is their primary income. And so they're directly incentivized to make more clickbaity shit.
Yeah, but
no.
Okay, we got
real quick because I got to jet in a few minutes, but we should take a second and say congratulations to India.
Oh, Chris,
dude, exactly. Yeah.
We should just. I got a video real quick. We just actually I should be sharing it on this screen so that we can hear the audio.
How long is the video?
It's just literally put it on for like 2 seconds.
Okay.
I just want to play for like 2 seconds of it.
India goes to the moon. This guy's like, how long is the video? Like,
right.
Bro, I don't. Like, people are like, you need to have some national pride. I'm like, bro, get out of here.
Do you guys hear the audio?
Yeah.
India became only the 4th country to land on the moon, but the first to make it to the lunar South Pole.
Increase the volume, Carlos, on the YouTube video.
Landed at 6:04 p.m. local time, putting India into the history books, and didn't those at Space Control in Bengaluru know it? Beamed in and beaming from the BRICS summit in South Africa, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was very much front and center.
He's like, we will be profitable next quarter.
This
gross margins on the moon are 98%.
This is a proclamation of a developed India. This moment is New India's victory cry.
Such is the symbolism of.
Yeah.
Okay, so
there you go.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
One of the greatest achievements that you can have for India is people forget that almost 75 years ago now, but 75 years ago, this country was in abject poverty that just decolonized, right? So if you look at what India has gone through in terms of development, it's actually really, really crazy. The other thing is also, all those guys that you saw in the headquarters and stuff, each one of these guys in the last probably 30, 40 years were probably approached by NASA, by all sorts of other space agencies for way more money. Like you're talking about God knows how much money. If you look at like NASA right now, how many Indian people they actually have working for them, it's crazy. Same thing with a lot of like the tech sector here in the US. A lot of them, were Indians that were born in India, raised in India, went to IIT Madras in India, which is the MIT of India, and they chose to come to the US and make money and everything else. But those guys, the ones that just they stayed. Imagine right now staying in a place, in a country, giving up all sorts of riches and benefits. And for what purpose? The purpose is to national pride. And that's the thing that you really have to give it up, that the human spirit is one of those things that it's driven more than just money. Like I know that's the fundamental behind capitalism. Like, oh, more money equals more everything. Dude, that's not it, man. If you're looking for true happiness, it does not come from money. Like I have money. Money is not what makes me happy. You know what makes me happy? The ability to be proud of certain things that I'm doing. It's like being able to do charity work. Things like that are what motivate me to go forward. So, you know, I think what it is a lot of times we want money, and money does definitely make the other parts of everything easier. But guys like this, and when you see a country like this come up, it's a really big thing. And the other thing that was actually, but a lot of people forget, is about 30 years ago, the discussion wasn't India, should India, you know, do space. I mean, it wasn't like, can India go to space? It was actually, oh, India is a third world country. Should they even invest in trying to go to space? And it was countries out west who were like, why are you guys spending money on sending people, you know, like developing rockets? You're a third world country. You should be figuring out how to feed your people. You should be figuring out how to build toilets, you know, because you guys have.
It's a relatively small percentage of the overall GDP. And the other thing too is there are a tremendous amount of social benefits that come from those space programs.
Yeah.
Because of the limitations and the constraints and the dangers of operating in space, you end up having to push through certain barriers or invent entirely new manufacturing processes. You have to invent entirely new elements, or just because weight is a serious issue. Strength is a most issue. The forces and the things that anything in space is dealing with is way more than what you're dealing with here on Earth. So much of what we have, it comes from advancements that they made in the military. A lot of what's come from it. So there is a benefit to it, but you know, you're always going to have, it's like Tevis was saying, you're always going to have somebody who's just shitting on you for no reason. Like, yo, they went to the fucking moon. Shut up. Like, you know?
Yeah. And there's also entrenched parties that they kind of want to hold it to themselves and say, no, this is our thing. You guys can't come in. Like, it's like the same thing with Tesla breaking into the auto sector. Well, you guys don't know shit about cars. Get out of here. Electric cars, that'll never work.
Yeah.
But you know, when you have the right passion behind your core thesis, bro, the world is there is no limit. You can do whatever the hell you want, you know, whether you only have a nickel in your pocket. And that's what this country used to be all about, man, where you could become whatever you wanted to be. You could do whatever you wanted. You didn't need a shit ton of money. You could figure out that shit out. And I think over time I hope we never lose that, but over time I see it eroding. But then there's other countries out there that they're picking up the torch a little bit and saying, no, we're going to strive for more. And that's what everyone should be about, striving for more.
I think the U.S. gave them a parking ticket when they landed. They were like, yo, I think I'm telling you, if we let the video play, I think you see they gave them a ticket.
That's what I was thinking. Like, as Kris was saying, like, looking at the spending and looking at where India was, you know, when the U.S. landed on the moon, like the U.S. hasn't been back since, you know, and it's just crazy just to see the disparity around, like, well, I mean, I know we talked about this on, I think, a previous episode, like way back, talking about the opportunities in the US. And I think that people still think that like NASA is the gold standard for all this. I mean, that's been a little bit replaced with companies like private companies like SpaceX, but it's still crazy to see that, you know, a country like India, where you have certain perceptions around the status of that country in terms of geopolitics and the poverty of that country and where the US lands and where India lands. And meanwhile, I was just thinking earlier today when I saw that news, I was like, wow, like the US hasn't really been there since 1969. And meanwhile, like India just went to the moon. Like, that's wild.
All right. Speaking of Indians, the last question of the night, one word answer from all you guys. That boy Vivek is getting some damn popularity. Republican debate tonight. Who do you think is the objective winner of today's debate? My answer is Vivek. That boy knows how to talk. He knows how to communicate. I think he's going to wipe the floor of everybody. What do you guys think?
I'm not watching it. I'm watching Tucker instead. So
Tucker and Trump. I was going to bring that up as well, but we ran out of time.
I want to see what the numbers are, the spread. I do think that Vivek,
if you had to pick, just for fun, who would you think?
Well, if you just look at the landscape, Vivek is the only guy with, like, he's the one that's most out there socially present. He's got a very clear laid out plans, and you already know what he's going to say on a lot of things. But what I think is going to be interesting about this is see how they go after each other, because they'll talk shit about each other on the campaign trail. But what you learn a lot about is how these guys operate in the face of opposition. So I'm most interested in seeing how they're basically all going to pile up on Pence. That's the first thing that's going to happen. They're all going to pile up on Pence and just discredit him. And then Pence will try to fight back. And then it's going to be basically DeSantis and Ramaswamy at the end. Everybody else, I think, is just there for.
You don't think any of these guys have a shot at like when I mean who the talking heads tomorrow, who they say win the debate? You think it's DeSantis or Ramaswamy? One of those.
Oh yeah, I think they're going to get the most talking time. They're going to get the most questions. I do think watch out for Haley. She's going to come out swinging. I bet you she's going to come out with some dirt, and maybe Scott as well. He's going to come out swinging, try to throw some dirt, try to get some of that Kamala Harris. You know how she would attack people, or some of that. What's her name?
Please don't mention Kamala Harris, man. I think she's like the worst fucking. Oh god.
Speaking of Indians, Kamala Harris.
I'm calling it right now. None of the major headlines are going to be talking about who won this debate. They're all going to be talking about maybe not because they're news organizations, but I think the main conversation is just going to be about the massive viewership that Tucker and Trump is going to get relative to this Fox debate.
So
no, because they're not going to want to give. They're not going to want to give Trump.
I know, that's what I was saying. Like the media organizations won't give it credit, but
they're not going to talk about it at all. And did you notice? I mean, we didn't talk about this much, but Google, I'm pretty sure that this is now active, where they recently will not allow sort of independent journalists to show up in search results. Have you heard about that?
Twitter's going to solve that. Twitter's
going to solve that, but most people still get their news from Google. So a lot of this stuff, like now that Trump is not being given sort of any mainstream attention, they're basically setting him up that he won't show up in search results. So I am curious to see. I think his interview with Tucker will get millions of views. I mean, millions and millions of views. It's going to easily get way more views than the actual debate.
Kris, who do you think wins?
Well, I think outside of who wins, I just want to talk about one thing real quick. I think the Democrats are going to do everything in their power to make sure Trump wins the primary. And I'm starting to see it. There's two things that are happening that I had to objectively ask myself. Number one is all the media coverage around these new Trump indictments and everything else. Like if you want a political party's base to rise up and basically not even consider anyone else, the one thing you want to do is garner sympathy for that one person that you feel like is being prosecuted, right? So right now, a lot of this stuff, like this Georgia DA that's going after him, and then all this other bullshit with indictments, you're basically giving all of that sympathy vote to Trump.
But even some Democrats are starting to say this is enough. Like we've really got to have something to get this guy. 91 indictments. Like, why did we wait so long? I mean, a lot of them are saying if you did this right after the election, it makes sense, but the timing of it is really suspect. Yeah. So I agree with you. It's backfiring.
Yeah, well, it's not backfiring. It's going according to plan because that's what they want. They want Trump on the other side of that vote against Biden, because then they could say, well, look at Trump. Like there is so much dirt that they have on Trump that they can throw at him, and some of it is actually going to stick. And there's already the Trump derangement syndrome people on the Biden side or on the Democrat side that are moderates, but just like, we just find Trump to be so repulsive that we're not going to even think about it. Like, in my opinion, if Trump gets the primary and Trump runs, Biden is going to probably win again. Sorry. I know that sounds really bad, but
are we saying it's a foregone, and maybe this is just my lack of understanding in U.S. politics, but are we saying it's a foregone conclusion that DNC is going to run with Biden instead of the other candidates?
Yeah, DNC's already decided. It's not even
I think they've been really happy. The people that are actually running the country are really happy having that guy. I don't think he has.
They got Mr. Magoo, who
I don't think he really has much input on anything, but he's a great fall guy. You don't have to deal with him or his opinion.
This is some people would say this is Obama's fourth term. That's what people. That's what you're basically voting on at this point. But my point is, if Trump wins the primary, which the Democrats are hoping, then Biden, of course, will probably end up winning because there's so many people with Trump derangement syndrome and moderates that are just like off put by a lot of the policies that Trump had during his first presidency. The thing that scares, I think, Democrats the most is if one of these primary guys like Vivek comes out, who's actually got talk.
No,
he can talk and he can reach across the aisle and get the job fucking done. That's the problem.
Bro, I love listening to him. I'm not trying to be political here, but I like listening to him. He's smart.
I hate to burst your bubble, but he's not going to get the nomination. The reason why he's being elected, I'll tell you let's see what's going to happen, and then I really do got to jet, because I've seen this now probably 4 or 5 election cycles. I'm not even kidding. He He's being allowed. He's basically the Bernie Sanders of today. He's saying all the right things. He's energizing a base. He's getting a bunch of new voters to come in, and the establishment, meaning like the Republican establishment and the Democrat establishment, is looking at what he says is resonating with people. And when they want to, when it is time, they will crush him. Absolutely crush him, whether it's a media blackout or they'll finally put out all the dirt that they have on him, absolutely decimate his
They tried to, and he's clowning the CNN.
No,
host. I mean, he's clowning them on their own
They're
show.
not trying yet. They're not trying yet. Look at what happened to Ron Paul, and I think it was 2007. That guy had so much support, and he was saying all the right things, but he was threatening the wrong people. He was talking about the deep state. So he had to go. They blacked him out, and he eventually lost. Same thing with Bernie Sanders. He was allowed to run, but as soon as he became a threat in Nevada, guess what happened? All of a sudden, there was problems with the voting machine, and then a bunch of people consolidated, and they got this, and Elizabeth Warren won't succeed.
Vivek just reminds me a lot of like Andrew Yang in the last one, like just a young guy, progressive ideas, like really liked by younger voters, doesn't get the nomination.
He doesn't get the nomination, but it's basically free research for the establishment. Let him talk. Let him say a bunch of things. Some of the stuff that he says can be adopted into the establishment platform. Just like for example, Biden didn't come out with the idea of like forgiving student loans or Medicare for all. He didn't come out with that. That was Bernie. That was a bunch of those. And they go, how is that polling? Oh, that's polling really well. Let's see if we can incorporate that into our message. Not to say we're actually going to do anything about it, but it's a way of just getting a bird's eye view of what voters respond to without you having to be the guy. So that's why they're letting Vivek say all this stuff. They let him talk about World Economic Forum. Let's see if people respond to it. If they do, I promise you'll see Biden and Trump.
Do you think this debate at all increases his profile to the point where he can be one of the two guys?
And he might win a few of the early primaries. He might actually win a few of the early primaries. But I'll tell you right now, if he ever becomes any sort of threat, you're going to see the FUD campaign come out against him like you've never seen. And then he'll be gone. And then if you put him on stage with Trump, Trump will eat him alive. He'll give him a nickname. He's going to call him something.
Here's a very
Bro, if he calls him Apu, I'm going to be dead. I'm going to be dead.
Pretty funny.
Here's a very interesting comment someone just put, and this is the problem that you run into with American politics. Can Natalie's comment up there? Yeah. It's like I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but honestly, don't understand why anyone would vote for Trump or Biden. We don't have a choice.
We don't have a choice.
We don't have a fucking choice.
There was someone who said, he goes, your democracy is crumbling when you don't feel like there's anyone you can vote for to have it change. And what we've basically been is a race to the bottom of like, what's the lesser of two evils? What's the lesser of two evils? I wish we could vote on actual issues, where we could vote and say, these are the issues. This is how we feel about the issues, and not have it be a popularity contest between like 80-year-old guys. Like, where did we lose our way?
They are getting up there in age.
Anyway, I got to jet, guys. Thanks so much, Tevis. I don't know why you left. Was it something that Chris said? I mean,
my camera just crapped out, but I'm still here.
There's one thing I just want to share with you guys. This is pretty much American politics. Okay, this is what American politics looks like. Let me just hold on.
Funny.
Want good thing. Oh. We like good thing. How you pay for good thing? He want bad thing. No, he don't want bad thing. He want bad thing. He want bad thing. No, he don't want bad thing.
Kill them. That's it. That's pretty much it.
That literally happened. Medicaid for all sounds great, Bernie, but how are you going to pay for it? It's just, then we do a 1% tax.
Like he hates
1 cent tax on Wall Street speculation, and we'll be, get the fuck out of here. Everybody off the stage.
They all got to sell dreams. And Vivek's doing the best job of selling a dream right now.
Yeah, someone said the Simpsons alien bit was better. The one with the choice was either Kang. Oh, let me pull it up, actually.
All right, I got to check out.
Carlos, if you got to go.
See you later, Carlos. All right, bye. Simpsons Kang vote. This is by far
hilarious, bro. I think, my opinion is Vivek's gonna wipe the floor, man. I mean, like, I'm not Republican or Democrat either, but man, he did debate in high school. I did debate. I can see his communication skills. The motherfucker can talk. He can beat back any argument. He's fucking smart, bro. The guy is. He built $1 billion company too. I mean, like a lot of credit for that.
All right, this is from The Simpsons.
Politics of failure have failed. We need to make them work again. Tomorrow, when you are sealed in the voting cubicle, vote for me, Senator Bob Dole. I am looking forward to an orderly election tomorrow, which will eliminate the need for a violent bloodbath.
America, take a good look at your beloved candidates. They're nothing but hideous space reptiles. It's true. We are aliens. But what are you going to do about it? It's a two-party system. You have to vote for one of us.
Right. This is a two-party system. Party candidate.
Go ahead. Throw your vote away.
All hail President K.
We were just watching a full episode.
I don't understand why we have to build a ray gun to aim at a planet I never even heard of.
Don't blame me. I
voted for Kodos.
And this is why investing is important, because you got to control your own destiny, not trust the politician.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. That's it. Tevis, thank you for joining us. Tevis's YouTube is in the description. Please follow him. Kris needs a break. He will not be here tomorrow, but the show will still happen, and we'll keep going. Thank you, everybody. Have a great
Later,
one.
guys.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.